official.
Hey, happy Monday. Make sure you turn your volume off.
I already do not disturb it.
We're getting the hang of this. How was everybody's weekend? We had a great weekend. Can't wait to tell you all about it.
But that's not where the video began.
It never is, but that's what I always want to talk about.
We have to start on Tuesday of last week, and I don't know what the hell happened Tuesday of last week.
Let's just talk about what happened before Friday, like before the weekend started. Did you bring an extra ice cube?
Gotta have a backup cube.
He's putting an extra ice cube in our freezer out here, so he has the ice cube for later. Because I guess this one's going to be long.
I didn't. We didn't.
We're doing it a little bit different today.
The garage is a little emptier.
It's a little empty. So
because certain
we'll have to, if you don't know, we'll
certain
have to tell
cars
you about
don't
it.
want to come off with trailers right now.
No, she can't do it.
They will, but not today.
No.
So what happened? What did we do?
So prior to
Last week.
leaving for the track, because that's where we were all weekend, we went to CMP. We got stuff in the mail. It was like Christmas.
We got a bunch of cool stuff. Yeah, we got stuff in the mail, and we messed with April's black Mustang, and I think that was, and one mod on the Tundra.
What did we do on the Tundra?
The windshield.
Oh, that's right.
Which
That
was
was
a
a
big
big
deal.
deal.
So we'll talk about all that, but I wanted to say that out loud. So we didn't make we're winging it. There's no notepad.
Yeah. Tonight, I just want to do a quick shout out to Ellsworth Racing. Couple of brothers. Freaking sick shirts,
Super
guys.
cool.
The shirts are
They
like
drive
super
Vipers.
cool. Yeah, a pair of brothers that drive Vipers. It's kind of like a whole fun family thing.
They're
and
awesome.
their dad caught COVID, and he's been battling COVID, so we just kind of wanted to wear some shirts in support of them.
Buy some swag from
Yeah.
them. They're at Ellsworth Racing. They got a YouTube channel under the same thing.
Sick YouTube channel.
They do their own work. They don't drop their stuff off. They're building a Challenger with a Viper, putting a Challenger on a stretched Viper frame right now that was going to be a SEMA build before this pandemic happened. So
Not like a new Challenger, like a 70s Challenger.
Yeah, they're catching some flack in the Mopar world for it, but
Really?
I think it, yeah.
I didn't know they were getting.
But I think it's awesome, and they're great
they're awesome.
guys. We met them at Time Trial National Tour 2 years ago, and just a great group of guys. They where are they at in
Wisconsin? I believe so.
So they're way away. So we're gonna get to
They're
see them a
so
whole lot.
far away. We've only
awesome.
seen them in person like one time.
Yeah.
And just really enjoy them. So we're sending well wishes to their family, and we love the shirts. We're still waiting on our invoice for the shirts because we haven't.
Come on, guys.
So we'll.
We know how it is.
If we don't get one, we're just gonna send you money. So that's
You're
how
getting
that's
something.
That's how that's gonna work.
We'll send you. We got one Dodge part for a Viper that you might.
That's gonna be my Viper build, though. But no. So this was one of our gifts in the mail that we got. What else do we got? We got some cool hats.
Yep.
They're off camera. We have a lot of stuff off camera.
Yeah, I got a whole table.
He's our Vanna White. He's gonna like show you.
So these are the hats.
Oh my gosh. So we have a friend, Doc Speedfellow, who's usually really supportive and watching us and gives us.
Yeah, he's probably watching right now.
He gives us tons of information, and he's a big gearhead, big racer. Used to be a NASCAR tech guy. He sent us some very cool hill climb hats, and you're not going to be able to read them, but this one says the Ireland Hill Climb Championship. So yes, this is an overseas hill climb.
Yeah.
So still brand new. How cool is that? And then we also have the Mount Canton hill climb, and that's one in Australia. So two overseas awesome hill climb hats, like memorabilia.
April's very excited, and if she won't wear them, I'm sure
these were not
Ryan will
sent for
steal
me.
them.
These are sent for April.
So
but
we
she
got
loves
some
them,
hats.
and she has kept them both.
Awesome.
So we had to
very
steal
much
those out of
appreciate
her
it. We
room.
had to find them. Yeah, it was fun.
They're so cool.
So here's the other thing.
He also sent us 2 Weapon 507 decals. That's his Super cool Mercedes. I'm going to keep one for myself, and I'm going to give the other one to my friend Rebecca, who also drives a
507.
Yeah.
That's the model number.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because it's a C63
Yeah, it's a
AMG.
507.
And she's
something.
got, yeah.
Wait, I don't know. I think it's like an E46
They're just like the
BMW.
coolest.
I think it's a 507.
So,
but they
thank
look
you
great,
so much,
and they're
Josh.
white.
We really appreciate them.
Rebecca's car is white, so it
Yep.
look great in their garage. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she'll put it on her car. She likes that clean look. I mean, she's literally a detailer, so she'll probably just put it somewhere cool and hang on to it.
They
so.
get a sweet
Oh
Ellsworth
yeah, we got
Racing
an Ellsworth
sticker.
Racing sticker. So definitely head over
We
to
like
their
stickers,
shop.
guys. We got a big freezer and a fridge.
Yeah,
The fridge
yeah,
doesn't have
it's
any
gonna
on it
go on
because it's
our-
ugly green.
Yeah,
and
it's gonna go on
We're
our
waiting for it to
fridge.
die, but it's
Freezer.
never gonna. I'm gonna put this in here. So
Awesome. Keeping track of all of our
Okay,
stickers.
so that is some sweet swag
got
we
some
got.
sweet swag.
Right.
I love free clothes because I hate shopping.
So,
So any free clothes is good. This is not free. I will be paying for this, but if people want to send me free clothes, I'm in.
you guys know already
Yep.
that we had, like, Hank's getting some love. He was, race car's getting some love too now, but Hank was getting some love. We showed you all this stuff a couple
Yeah, we
live
got-
streams ago. All these.
Adjustable sway bar end links and a bump steer kit.
Yep.
So
So
that's
that's
going to help a whole lot.
going on, Hank. The Momo wheels still aren't here,
Haven't
but
got
that's
the
a
wheels.
quick install, right? So
These are old.
we reached out to Terry Fair and Vorslag and asked him if he could send us the other parts we ordered so we could go ahead and knock that out. So he
They
did.
did. They're like, no problem. We'll get those in the mail.
I am a machinist, and these are machined parts in his own house. They run a little CNC shop right there, and it's all hand built right here in the U.S.
Not these. The ones that you
Not
show.
these.
I want to see them.
So
They want to see them. Y'all want to see
They're
them.
pretty baller.
The build-up's too long.
They're pretty baller.
Look at
So these are some bad to the bone
caster plate.
Vorslag caster camber plates. They got little, I don't know how they
They're
work
zip tied
yet.
together right
They
now.
got little dashes. They got little dashes, and I guess that's for how many degrees you want. I don't know. There's a lot of
gonna figure it out.
adjustments. But they look awesome. They're red anodized. They got a little bearing in there.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
even know
sweet.
why there's one in there, but I'm sure it's there for a reason. These are. I asked Terry Fair more questions than he wants to answer about cars.
Especially mine.
So we definitely. He's not. We don't get anything at a discount from him.
No.
He's not a gigantic.
But he does sponsor us in
Conglomeration.
information.
But he gives us so much information for free that we definitely want to give him a shout out on here. We run the stickers on the car.
Yep.
This is the first Vorslag part that will go on Hank, though, which he's sitting here in all his pretty blue.
Most of his stuff is Ford Performance, and I do
Yeah.
have some Steeda subframe reinforcement. I have the like bumpy. I can't remember what it's called.
There's a bushing, exposed piece of rubber bushing on the back between the subframe and the body, and it's a little collar that goes around it.
Subframe alignment and reinforcement kit. That's what it is
funny
from
because
Steeda. I just remembered.
So many people want a nice independent rear, and then track people do everything they can to make it not do that. They want it to be stiff, so they got good butt feel and everything. And if you don't know that's what you're doing with your ridiculously stiff coilovers and your big ass rear sway bar and all that shit you're putting on the back of your car, like you're trying to make it a solid rear axle. So just know that. Just know that. That's what you're doing. So it's very expensive to make an independent rear back into a solid rear axle. One of the beautiful things about S197 Mustangs is it's a pickup truck back there. It's just solid rear axle. It's very simple. Think about that when you're investing in track componentry, or maybe going to buy a track car. What are you trying to do? Independent rear suspensions were not made for on-track performance. They were made for driving around on bumpy ass roads on public highways and stuff. So Yeah, they're edition 507 cars, so we were right. It's an edition 507.
So yeah, Doc's telling us, hopefully you guys can see that in the comments, a little bit of information, and that's Doc Speedfellow, who we were talking about.
Frank Purser, you know enough about fixing stuff. You can get you one of these too. Not this one, though. This whole thing. He said, such a pretty driver and an ugly mechanic. I give him hope.
Oh,
and Trad, man, I hate you weren't there. I'm glad I knew you weren't there because I haven't brought any of my camera stuff out in the last, 6 months because you or Perry's been at these events.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, I started using that monopod an event ago for the drag race. For Jennifer Fuller and Karen Walter Thomas's drag race.
Mm-hmm. Ladies drag race.
And I used it this weekend too, and oh man, once you get the hang of it, that thing is a freaking lifesaver. I absolutely love that thing. It's awesome. I took 3,000 images and I threw out 300 of them. All the rest of them were in focus.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. But
it was awesome.
You know, and he slowed down his shutter speed
shooting,
to get cool wheel spin and blur.
I was getting shots at 400 millimeter at a 40th of a second, which is technically not possible. And it was that. I got image stabilization in the lens, but without having that fluid tripod foot on the bottom of that thing, oh man, it was sweet. And I don't have to hold that big camera up. That's nice too. But thanks for the tip. Appreciate it. I'm glad I could help out with photography for our group and for Racing for ALS guys that were there with us.
So what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking, this is Redemption. No, just
say what you're drinking.
This is Redemption Bourbon. And it's not going to make it for the whole show. We got Knob Creek right here. That's going to be the backup drink. But Lawrence Shue, who was with us at the event, brought us some
Lawrence. I'm going to try it right now. I've got to open it.
Bought us some awesome bottles of spirit. And the whiskey.
We like to party.
The whiskey didn't make it back. So
we like to party.
We didn't bring enough whiskey.
We was having a good time.
But it was good. So what else happened before we started?
We were walking out the door and UPS drops off a huge package and we're just like, whatever, let's just keep going.
Can't open it. So this is big.
This is really cool. It does not help my dilemma, my current dilemma.
So this
is a car part.
This is an intake manifold for Hank. This is a GT350 intake manifold. And this was given to us by Timothy Cheek. He's the man. This is a $1,000 car part right here. This goes on the top of the motor.
Yes, thank you so much, Timothy.
He's absolutely awesome.
Always appreciate all your support. I love your comments. And I think it's fun that you've really watched the progression of Ryan Cheek Racing. So thank you so much. This is going to be great.
So what's this going to do for Hank? And why are we not putting it on now?
So this is going to make him feel more like a GT350. This is the GT350 intake manifold. I currently have a Power Pack 2 on the car, which is a GT350 throttle body and cold air intake. He's really, really peppy. He's got a lot of low-end torque. He is just the best street car. He's so good at autocross because I'm normally in the 2,000 to 5,000 RPM range. That's just super high power, super high torque for the components that are on the vehicle right now. Putting this on the cart is going to drop a little bit of horsepower, going to drop a little bit of torque at the beginning and the low RPMs, but it extends, it increases the horsepower over 6,000 RPM and raises the limiter up to 7,500 RPM and really adds a lot more power up top. So it's going to feel more like a Boss 302. It's going to feel more like a GT350. It's just going to keep pulling And with the components that are on the car right now, it pulls and then it kind of like drops off. You know, after like 6,000 RPM, you should just upshift because you're just not going to get any more. Short shifting is what I call it in this car. But this is really going to allow you to use all of your gearing. It's going to give you so much, such higher speeds on open tracks where you're over 100 miles an hour. This is going to be fantastic. So that's why this coming right before this weekend just...
It's not helping.
It's created a really big dilemma. This would be an amazing track car. I
would love
it.
In a little bit. The reason, so a little technical information, the reason this does what it does.
Cheers.
I don't know where mine is. There it is, right over here. Holding this big. I'm not used to having something this big.
This, Don Julio Blanco is very fragrant. It's kind of like an almondy smell. So,
this, an engine, and you should call it an engine and not a motor. Motors can be electrical, and that's good to know for these times.
I like it. Thank you.
These engines are air pumps, and they light air on fire halfway through with gas, right? So, this manifold under low RPM doesn't give you as much power as the stock manifold in the car, and they do that because most people are driving around town. They're not winding their cars out on track. And it gives you good power at low RPM because it's set up in a way to take a big gulp of air quickly, but as you're asking for more and more air, there's lots of turbulence that goes on inside of here. And eventually you run out of how much air can rip through your intake to get into your pistons. So this one has these nice channels. It's actually, the air comes in on the bottom. The air comes in on the bottom and then goes up into there and then shoots out the sides to get in there. So it's got kind of a little snaky path for the air to go. So it takes it a minute for the air to get through all that. But once it's flowing through, with this manifold, you can actually pull another 500 RPM out of that motor, and that allows you 60 more horsepower at peak RPM. So if you're on track and you're staying above like 5,000 RPM, ripping through the gears going down a straightaway, you're really going to pull away from a regular or even a Performance Pack 2 GT with this intake manifold on. It takes the same throttle body that's on the car, which was part of the upgrade for the Performance Pack 2. So you just put the GT350 throttle body on the front of here, bolt her down, flash it with our Ford ProCal tuner.
Yeah, we'll have to get a new
and
tune
let them know,
Ford,
so the motor knows what's going on.
They'll give it to us for having the parts. Ford's really cool about that.
Yeah.
Scott Weatherford says, I may need a higher rear end gear, which I believe you're talking about the differential. I have 373s in it right now, which is pretty high. I could probably go to 410s unless you're saying
no, the other way.
Go to 355s or 323 gear. You know, we'll just see. I mean, the car is things are so modular in the Mustangs. You can just get so many different parts for it. So
I don't know what the GT350 comes with. I don't think it's 373s though. They sell these for drag racing. They expect you to drag race that. The block's made for 1,500 horsepower. So, and they expect the GT350. So really mirroring a lot of parts is
he was saying to go to shorter gears.
And it's possible. We don't know. That's not something we're going to do right now. But it's awesome that we got this part. That'll handle the motor side of it because the transmission doesn't have any coolers on it either, and that is also
would have to do something
going to be an issue. And if you got to pull the transmission to put coolers on it,
well, we know a guy that hasn't Tremec if he hasn't sold it, and I've been eyeing it.
We'll put this big boy down. Thanks, Timothy.
Thank you so much.
This is awesome
to everybody. And like Doc Spello is saying, I got new clothes, I got new car parts. It was even a bigger week because I got to go drive Carolina Motorsports Park for the first time, and it was awesome. It is a pretty local track.
We did one more thing though for you.
Oh, it was a truck.
We did. Well, two things then.
Oh gosh.
So we did. April's air conditioner was messed up, so April put in almost unassisted. I had to move a wiring harness, but April put in her air conditioning compressor. And once we got all that bolted up, we went to Black Mountain Tire and charged the system and took it back here, and it still wasn't really working. We couldn't figure it out, and it's actually in the relay pins. Something, I couldn't get the fuse box all the way open to push the connectors back together, so I bent the relay pins in like little snakes now.
Oh, really?
So they're wider, so they don't touch both sides. It was some voodoo magic, but
sounds like Red
air
Rectified or
conditioner
MacGyver,
is working.
so.
I'd rather jack a relay up and spend $5 than take the ECM apart to try to do that. So that's what we did.
True.
So her car's fully functional.
April's.
So that's good.
Fantastic.
Defrost is, I don't really care if she gets hot in the car.
Defrost.
But defrost is a big deal in the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, your windshields get foggy. In the winter, you know, sometimes you have ice all over the car, so you need some defrost. So, yeah, her car is in tip-top shape for what it is and looks good.
Yeah.
She's loving it.
We're still looking.
We are still looking for another car. We got
What's
a
that?
lead on a car,
so
we're very, very excited. Things are just very hectic right now.
Yeah, we got a lot going on.
And then you fix the Tundra.
Yeah.
The biggest complaint for me, I have two complaints with our Tundra. It tows the white car very well. The white car, I believe, is about 38, close to 3,900 pounds with full gas and, you know, my racing gear in it. She's a heavy, heavy car. And the Tundra tows her pretty well, especially with our new lighter trailer, our leveling stabilizer bar kind of thing. But
you gotta do everything you can. That thing doesn't make even 300 horsepower.
But sitting in that car for 3 hours, the wind noise, and we thought it was brutal. Because it was an older truck, maybe not as much sound deadening kind of stuff in it. It just kind of wore on you. At 70 or even like 60 and 70 miles an hour, you were kind of really having to talk louder so everybody else in the cab could hear you, or you had to really crank up the movie that the kids were watching.
And it tuckers you out on your way to wherever you're going.
It really takes a toll, especially for me. I have auditory, like I get overwhelmed with a lot of noises and stuff. It's kind of weird, not race car noises, but a lot of noise, continuous noise. I get really, really drained. So Kyle was actually looking at the windshield, and the windshield...
I was washing, I did like a wash day and washed all the vehicles, and when I got up and ran my hand down the windshield, so the 05 and 06 Tundra has a vaulted cab. So
what does that mean to us?
So the dimensions of the 05 and 06 Tundra are a few inches bigger in every direction.
Like, so it's just bigger every which way.
So, and I guess when they did that, they decided that they didn't want to move the windshield with it because that would require the frame to move.
Or the
maybe
dash
a crash test thing. I have no idea.
I don't know.
So they left the windshield where it was. So what ended up happening is you had, so pretend this is the edge of your windshield. So they vaulted the truck, and now you have a gap between your windshield and where the painted piece of the truck comes up on the side. So they stuck a thing in, a little piece of plastic like that.
With what? How'd they stick it in?
Well, I didn't know because ours were just hanging in there, and we realized it the other day when we were going down the road without the kids in the car. So we didn't have a radio going, no movies playing or anything, just quiet. And there's this ticking noise. And Ryan was like, sounds like it's over here. I was like, I think it's these little pieces of plastic. And so I took all that stuff off of there, and they were just on with double-sided sticky tape, like 3M double-sided sticky tape, and they weren't attached. That stuff has failed at some point. I don't know.
So what was happening?
So there's this piece of metal coming up on each side of the windshield, and that air's hitting the windshield, and it's shooting into that piece of metal.
Like there's pockets.
And then that piece of metal travels into the vehicle where the door jamb is. So any of that wind,
it was just going right down the door jamb,
right there.
You know, and of course you have a seal on your cab where you close your door, but it was traveling all around that and exiting out. So it was just very, very loud.
So I fixed that the day before. I pulled it off, stripped all that down, put a new piece of 3M super molding adhesive, which you can get at
two-sided sticky tape.
It's like $10. But man, if it didn't shut the truck up, it was so quiet.
It is so
going down
quiet.
The road. Felt just brand new.
We were able to
which
talk.
is good because that new Tundra is pretty ugly.
Well, it is, but
so
we were able to talk like this the whole time.
Yeah, it was nice.
We got there, it wasn't as worn out. Now the seats are kind of uncomfortable, but I probably could get cool seat covers and maybe even get some heated elements in a seat cover.
Truck payment costs about what a track weekend costs for what we would need to upgrade to. So it's definitely
we're gonna
better
stick
to
with
keep
our
your
old
truck.
Reliable for now. But I'm so thankful that it's so much quieter.
Oh yeah, it's definitely an upgrade.
I'm so glad we found that. It made a really, really big difference.
So that was probably it as far as what happened before we left for CMP on Friday, like at lunchtime. We left. So I left work early on Thursday, and then we got all packed up and situated and got the car loaded and everything was ready, and then we shot out of here Friday around noon.
It was like 1. Yeah, it took a hot minute.
We found out we couldn't get there. We couldn't go
inside
register
the gate
until 4 p.m.
We couldn't get inside the gate until 4 p.m. So
but we're gonna camp.
Yeah,
a hotel.
This is our first camping at the track experience because we camped at the hill climb and it worked pretty good. And since it was just going to be us again, and we had buddies come in and
we had our hill climb posse.
They were camping and it was like, yeah, let's do that. And it saved us like $380.
Yeah.
So.
And we don't have to drive 30 minutes back to a
and
hotel.
And yeah, the hotels were a little
CMP is
far
kind
away.
of secluded.
It was really out there.
Definitely try to camp. Now, talking about camping, it was maybe 68 degrees was the low in the evening. It was going to get right around there, and
I don't
know if we could camp if it was any hotter than that.
No.
I'm a free sweater, and I had to wait till like 11:30 to take a damn shower because it was so hot. Well, it was fine though because we were hanging out with everybody because
it was so awesome.
We had 2 groups of awesome people with us at track. We had our hill climb guys came, Sam Wright, James Curry, Lawrence Shue, and then us. James brought his son, 17 years old.
Aiden.
His first track event
ever.
And he has a 330. He has a 330i.
F80
They're a big BMW family
like
from what it seems, which we can relate to because Ryan used to run BMW. So
and
it was
we're
cool
a big
they
Mustang
came.
Family,
So we were going to camp with them. So and Rob Wilmuth.
Yeah, Rob came. So what happened is we kind of got a late start. We got beat there by Lawrence and Sam, so they kind of picked out a section of paddock and set up camp, and we actually kind of had to move some people around. Our friend James Curry rented a camper and had rented a camping spot with 30 amp outlet, and it happened to be on the other side of paddock. But CMP was super chill. All we had to do was talk to the guy at the gate, tell him about where we wanted to be, and he was like, yep, that's available, got it moved. It was
really
so
felt
simple.
like
it was
Andy
great.
Griffith feel, like really, like, oh sure, what do you want to do?
It was great.
No paperwork.
It was very awesome.
When I got there, we have an SCCA family membership, and they got that straightened out for us really quick while we were there too.
Well, I had to call the national office.
Yeah, but still,
it got,
super,
but once,
super
but
fast.
They, told me what to do to make sure. And I tell you, SCCA, I just had such a good experience at every single one of their events, and the only other event that I've had such a good experience at was the Dave's race, which was the Racing for ALS
really nice,
fundraiser.
Real family feel.
That was another event that I was just like, yep, this is run really good. I've been to, I guess I've only been to one other like typical track day with organization, and it was okay, but I love the SCCA, and I know I have a video. I know that they're giving me a lot of attention, and that's not why I like them. I like them because of what they do and what they promote,
and the people.
So,
the people
yeah,
are great.
It really is the people. So we got camp set up. We were right next to Lawrence and Sam, and then we got James Curry in his camper, and then Rob Wilmoth showed up really late that night. Were we there? We were like
We were getting ready
to go to bed
when
he showed up,
and he got set up and out of his trailer, and it's really neat. So that's a really different group of people because Ryan tracks a Mustang. You guys know that. Lawrence tracks E46 M3, and he is in the same class as Ryan, and they were very close together at Chasing the Dragon Hill Climb.
Yep.
Sam Wright
Lawrence was having issues with his power steering.
Yeah.
So, but then Sam
tracks a Honda Civic Si that you wouldn't think was a Honda Civic Si. Check out my pictures.
It is super race car.
It's an eBay battleship. It's got all kinds of parts on it.
It gets the most attention.
Everybody came
out of
over
any
and they were
car.
like, "Hey, what are you? Oh man, look at this Honda." Nobody gave a shit
about
any of
Mustangs,
the other cars. It was so funny.
Brand new M4s.
And Rob's got
Honda.
a Audi RS3 that's
Big
making ridiculous power.
I said it. He's probably not even watching.
It was just funny because Lawrence, or not Lawrence, but Sam was the little celebrity of the group because everybody, hey, what kind of brakes you got on here? Where'd you get this from? Where'd you get that from? You know, checking out everything on the car. So it was funny. And that's a naturally aspirated Honda.
That's the key to remember.
It's making like 240 horsepower, maybe. And he ran a 143. So
he did.
Good job, Sam. You're a fast dude.
Yep.
When you keep it on the pavement.
He's a wild man.
Because he definitely pulls everything out of the corners he can. And he sends that shit, and
he does.
He's wild.
He's also Facebook banned, so
yeah, he can't be here right now because he's a troublemaker.
We call him B Savage, Blunt Savage, for a reason. So I mean, and then Lawrence Hugh ran so good all weekend. He ended up, his fastest time ended up being a 1:45.4, and I would have been close. Maybe like by a second or two in my Mustang. I don't know. I was getting a lot more comfortable with it. But during my second session on Saturday, second session ever being there. First session I went out was in a ton of traffic. They didn't really explain the gap lap. The thing about time trials is it's not a wheel-to-wheel race. Like, if you have to get a point by, that's not going to be your best lap. And you don't have to have a point by in, like, the advanced group. So, the first session, everybody just loads into false grid. And that's where they're timing you. That's your first times of the whole weekend. So, everybody's just like, well, I think I should be here. So, everybody just gets in line. The second session is where everybody has set a time, and then they set you fastest to slowest. So you're behind somebody that's faster than you, and the person behind you is slower than you technically. So you would at that point be able to leave like a little bit of a gap, so you can run.
What's the main goal of your first lap out at a time trial?
To separate out.
You got a whole track.
You have a whole track. There's maybe, at the most, I think there's been 30 people on track. And that's pretty
60
crowded.
yards apart.
It is pretty crowded, and you might have to make a pass just based on people getting more comfortable with the track, somebody not really feeling it. Some people like to go out and set their fast lap within the first couple laps. Some people kind of build up to it throughout the session. They're 20-minute sessions. So it kind of works a little bit differently, and that's where communicating helps in grid. Like, you can look over at your buddy or the guy behind you or the guy in front of you and be like, hey, I like to get my fast lap about the fourth lap, so give me some room, or I'll just give you a point by as soon as we get out there. And you can look at the car in front of you, and they can communicate as well. So it's really cool. So my first session, I really didn't get to, like, I was filling out the track, I was working through traffic, people were kind of feeling a little wheel to wheel because it is the first session. They're trying to get their fastest lap so they can get correctly gridded for the second session. But I did. I got a great lap time. I got a 152.2 on my very first session at CMP. I was super proud of it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really good baseline for me to grow off of for the whole weekend. Actually, my Garmin said I had an optimal time of 151, so I was like, yeah. So my goal for the weekend was going to be, I want to get under 150. I really wanted to get under 150. So second session came around, still in the morning. These are actually just practice. It's the first sessions of the whole weekend, and these are practice sessions. I go out and I get my good warm-up lap. Everybody's kind of gapped out. We're all feeling really good. I got good open track in front of me. I start to send it, and I get all the way through turn 11, and I'm getting ready to go into I'm headed for turn 12, and I'm getting back on power, but then I'm slowing back down, and I downshift a second, and it just sounded like ping, ping, ping everywhere. It was just like bling everywhere, and I was like, oh no, and the car won't go into second. So I immediately go to the outside of the line. You know, I had cars coming up on me really fast, so I just...
Yeah, you had a white S550 and a Corvette C5 Corvette right behind you.
So, you know, I'm like, point by, you know, like, you don't have to in advance, but I just didn't want them to worry or question. I'm just like, go, go. And I'm just on the edge of the track. Car won't go into gear. I'm just trying to coast to a safe place to get out of the way because I was actually in this like horseshoe where people take a lot of different lines. It's just not, there's not an obvious line. So people try different things there. So I felt bad. I felt like I was messing up people's laps, and this is my first catastrophic failure on track. I've never had an off. I've never even put like a wheel off on track. So like I've just never experienced the
emotions.
Just the slight like crap.
Yeah.
You know, what do I do?
And everybody's like, sitting there. I'm on the hump.
Everybody can see
that everybody said
paddock.
You're
They're
at
looking
track.
right at me.
When you're there, we were camping right there in front of that little hump that comes right onto where they come onto the front straight. So I'm shooting, and I was like, man, she's really slowing down.
Yeah, so
and I thought
coasted
maybe
around.
It was a fuel issue or what, and then she came to a stop, and I was like,
I coasted around, and I saw this little like road coming in, but it had cones, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna pull up next to those cones. Like I didn't want to just run them over. I didn't know what to do. I just needed to get off the track. And then I'm just like
getting emotional.
Dang it. You know, I dropped like 8
Well, that
F-bombs.
wasn't even a timed lap. That was qualifying still. That
yeah,
was
I hadn't
practice.
even gotten
So the race
timed lap.
hasn't even started.
And I didn't realize it was going to take lap times from both days.
Yeah.
So honestly, in my brain was like, man, if I had just gotten that 152 on record, that might have been enough to earn a podium spot for the weekend. And I'm just like, man, I've driven all this way. At least I didn't rent a hotel. But then, like, I was just like, I need a tow truck, and this sucks.
Yeah, I put the video up. Check it out.
But then, you know, I got to experience what getting a tow is like, and I didn't know how to do that. My tow ring is now scuffed up. I've been towed.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a pretty serious meat hook out there to pull apart.
There was no belt. There was no little like
want them
soft
hooking
belt.
up to suspension components.
No, they'll just do it
with that cable.
They'll just do whatever they can.
Get a tow hook.
It was good.
At least on the front of your car.
Yeah. So I'm getting towed back into pit.
Yelling at everybody that her transmission.
I thought it was my
exploded.
transmission.
She's like,
I don't know enough. I remember I turned the car off because it took a hot minute for the tow truck to come. Mm-hmm. And like instinctually, I just put it in first gear and I was like, what the crap? It just went into gear. And so I was like, let me try something. And I pulled it out of gear and I turned it back on and then tried to go back into gear and it wouldn't go into gear. I'm like, I don't know this. Like that's the limit of my mechanical knowledge. I was like, I don't know. So I turned it back off, waited on the tow truck. And then I get towed back into pit or paddock. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, this kind of sucks, but I'm literally surrounded by a ton of people that I love and really like to hang out with. I'm like, I'm
She
gonna
was
party
so
down
excited to come
and just be a
and then get to
cheerleader
race too.
for all the whole weekend. I was like, this
Yeah.
is fun.
I knew we weren't leaving. I was like, we're just gonna
no.
sit and hang out now.
And I get back, so I'm just coming off track. My whole gang is like, they're like, what's happening? What's happening? And I'm like, oh, this. And they like follow us all the way over to our little camping area.
Yeah, we push the car back.
And
so you can't work on your car unless you have a garage space or you're in the grass. You can't pull it in the road and do any maintenance, because there was a Viper there and he got yelled at, and apparently that's bad.
oh, I didn't know.
So
that.
you're not allowed to work on
Well,
your
there's
car
ants.
on the road, but there's fire
There's fire ants all in the
ants
grass.
everywhere.
So
It's
you
like-
don't really want to
it's
work
like
on it
fucking-
in the grass.
it's like
not the
Jumanji.
funnest. Yeah, it's not the funnest. So we get there and the guys are like, what do we need? Like, what are we going to do? And I told Kyle, I was like, it's weird. It'll go into gear when it's off, but it won't go into gear when it's on. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's your clutch. And he was like, well, maybe we can get her clutch replaced. And so they're like, well, where can we source the clutch? How are we going to do
so
this? Do we have enough
everybody's
tools?
coming. So
They're like,
so
we will help.
she's sitting there
And I'm like,
a mess.
I'm not that. I'm like, damn it.
So I'm like,
But I'm also
So
happy.
this
I'm
is-
like, we're just gonna party all weekend. Let's
this
let's
is
hang out
this
and
is
party.
what I do. This is what I'm like, okay, I'm a man of action.
He's my crew chief, so,
So,
he literally is
What are we gonna do?
to fix my car
So,
when it needs to be fixed.
I
It's
walk
a team. It is.
I
a team
walk
effort
over
here.
to the guys who, this is their home track, right? And that is racing for ALS guys. Scott
Yeah.
Weatherford, Scott Lloyd. I'll go over there. Scott Lloyd is like, hey, Momentum Speed Works. I think it's Momentum Speed Works. Momentum something. They're right on the outside of the gate. They're right there. He's like, let me take you over here. Go talk to this guy. Do this. See what they can do. So I go over. Get introduced to Phil, who owns Momentum.
Momentum Motorsports, right outside of
And-
CMP.
I'm talking to him about it. He's like, okay, we can do it. You know, what are we looking at? Yada, yada. When did it happen? And when I told him when it went out was the thing. It's like, it's really high speed when it goes out. So it's possible that you scored your flywheel. And he's like, I can put a clutch in it. But the flywheel, and if anything else needs to be replaced in there, you should really change out your throwout bearing while you're doing that. This car has 140,000 miles on it. I don't know if the clutch has ever been replaced.
And I don't think it has.
So-
honestly.
She's been having difficulty shifting for
four?
for the whole time we've had the
Once
car
it gets
changing in
warm.
fourth gear. So it's like,
And we've done
we should
fluid
probably
swaps.
do this right. So he comes back over. I have the car up in the air. Phil rolls under there. He's seeing the same thing I'm
Oh,
seeing.
he came out and looked at the car?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know
He
that.
rolls under the car. It looks like she hit a blackbird, right? Because there's gold wire in clutch material. A clutch is like a brake pad if you don't know, and that it looked like you blew a brake pad up and set it. Dang right.
Yeah.
We're repping the shirt. So he's like, I wouldn't do it here if I did it out. I wouldn't do it in the grass, which Lawrence had a bay. But
So we
you got to get the
could've used
car
the
up
bay.
high enough to pull the transmission out. See what's going on. Put it back. It's a lot, man. That's a lot for 2-day track. You're there for the track event, so
Right.
it's hard. I will say, our whole crew we were there with, they were like, "So are we doing this?
We're doing it all nighter.
Everybody's ready, right?"
We were gonna pull
So I
a
go
Justin
talk.
Peachy and get that shit
Yeah,
done
that's
overnight.
exactly who I was thinking. I was
Me
like,
too.
Justin Peachy does this dumb shit all the
Me too. I
time.
was like, we can do that.
So,
This is what we have to do.
so
But I was like, nah, we're just gonna party. I
So,
was like, I don't want
and
to
then
ruin
it's like,
everybody's
is it worth
weekend.
it? So when he's like, when Phil, who is doing this all the time, is like, I wouldn't do it this weekend. I would party.
Because there's no guarantee it'll actually be able to get
I
done.
might get it back on the track and something else happen.
True.
So I bet you we're ready to bet. We could have done it with Blunt Savage, but we get back, we're talking about it, and honestly, how many people? Everybody was
within
like,
5
"You wanna drive my
minutes,
car?
Within
You wanna
5
drive
minutes,
my
I
car?"
had 2 offers of people.
Which is huge.
Part of my crew, James Curry, walked right over and he was like, why don't you drive the M4? And I was like, and then I was like, because my brain is like, he's just being nice, and I appreciate that, and politely decline, because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, he's just being nice, he's your friend, he's just saying that. And I was like,
he got a little pushy.
I was like, are you being serious? He's like, absolutely. And I was like, no, I really need to know. He's like, you said you wanted to drive it, take my car. And I was like,
its nickname is Rental.
And I was like, if you are serious, I'm gonna take you up on that. And also Mark Miller came right over, and he was like, you can take my Miata. And I couldn't imagine just offering my car.
That's the group of people you're around.
It's a big deal, and
that's
it means
why you
more
need your
just
race
to get
family.
offered
Such a big deal.
So I mean, who's gonna turn down a 2020 M4 for the rest of the weekend? I mean, people pay good money to rent those to drive.
Rescue, not rental.
So
rescue.
I quadruple checked that he was being serious. I was like, if you're not, it's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. I appreciate the offer.
Because he doesn't let anybody drive this. It's not like the base model.
It's a competition package.
M4,
which
it's badass
actually has 400 and...
Stock horsepower is 444.
I thought it was 550.
So that makes y'all's lap times even better.
It was very fast, but Hank's very fast. But I mean, God,
so you got offered that. I will say also that Scott Lloyd was trying to figure out a way for you to reach the pedals in his frickin' Hendrick Track Attack damn NASCAR. That thing is a freaking nuts vehicle. And he was like, if we can get her in here, I'll let her drive it. But Scott is like, he's like 8 feet tall.
I want to say
he is without an adjustable seat. There's just no way.
I even just the sentiment of even contemplating letting me drive.
You
a
had
stock
literally
car
the
is
nicest,
amazing.
the badass cars that were there. They were like, here's keys.
Yeah, I mean, that means more to me than anything. But then I got to finish my weekend, which was a huge deal. And then we
let race car just hang out.
Yeah.
I dropped her off.
We just left her in the grass,
and she's just chilling.
Yep. And I had to work out with timing and everything. And the funny thing is I was running the Tuner 3 class, which is a more competitive, and I just mean that means you're allowed like camber plates.
You can tinker.
You can really tinker with the car. You can do a lot more to the suspension. You can do camber plates. You can, God, what else can you do?
You can tune the motor.
Tune headers.
You can't work inside the engine, but you can do whatever on the outside as far as exhaust or intakes. Yeah, no forced induction.
So, that's considered a harder class than any sport class.
Yeah.
So and the M4 was stock in Sport 2.
Yeah.
So technically,
it shouldn't compete in 2.
They're like, it shouldn't run in it. Yeah. It won't be competitive.
And it sounded crazy at the time.
It didn't make sense in my brain. I'm like, it's an M4. And again, I thought I had 550 horsepower. I was like, this is just, I don't want anybody to be mad at me,
Yeah. It didn't seem like it was a fair vehicle.
It didn't seem like it.
Until we started actually tracking.
Until I started driving it, and I could tell it didn't have camber plates. I could tell it had stock wheel size up front. I mean, it pushed pretty hard. I drove it in M dynamic mode and full automatic, and my first time out, I drove it like a Mustang, and I brought it back, and the brakes were smoking. That means I was using a lot of traction control. I was having a hard time putting the throttle down because the car was like, you can't just punch it like that, girl. They were like, you're going to lose it. I was driving it like a Mustang. I was trying to toss it in, catch it, punch it, and it's a lot more refined than that. Oh, but I had such a blast because it would just power down in the straights. I was like, I have never seen 135 on the track. Like, that is just...
Well, it's a different thing because you're going from almost 3 degrees of camber to maybe a degree, and it's heavy. It's a heavier car. It's not heavier than your car, but it's heavier than a lot of cars that are competing out there.
It's heavier than the white car.
Honestly, when you look at it, Lawrence Shoe has an E46 M3 and tuner 3.
And it has full safety gear, so it's completely gutted.
It is set up like a tuner 3 car should be set up. And you would think an M4 competition would just beat the brakes off of it.
But with the right driver.
It's a really interesting thing to see that
E46.
Your tuner class, how SCCA has set it up, allows a car that is 20 years old, potentially it's not 20 years old, 15 years old,
yeah, 15.
Be competitive with a brand new M4 competition on track, because your guys' lap times are really damn close.
They were really close. I think the M4 is still more capable. I don't think that they're competitive, but I think in the situation that the M4 was driven, it was not my car, so not gonna wreck it, even though my whole goal is to just never wreck. Like, I value my whole personal body. And this is a hill climb car, so it did have a 4-point roll bar in it, so it, and James had 4-inch older harness in it, and it was just too big for my frame, so I couldn't use the harness. I had to use the 3-point belt, so then I couldn't use my Hans, which, you know, I'm on this like all the safety all the time kick, so I felt a little guilty about not running it, so that made me back off even a little bit more, as like, you know, you can't wreck this car.
And we can't buy one.
I couldn't replace
this vehicle.
There's no way. And
so, you know, you got to be conservative for that.
And I feel like James would be like, you don't have to buy the car, but I could not live with myself if I wrecked somebody else's car and couldn't pay for it. So, you know, I was really just working my way up and enjoying driving an M4, you know,
having a track weekend still,
and still just driving the track. Exactly. I was just so thankful to still get to drive the track. And, you know, on the first day I ended at a 146.2. Yeah. And what we did, I felt I didn't want to override the car. I didn't want to put too much strain on the car. So James Curry ran advanced run group, and I ran in the novice run group. And I kept getting so late to grid, I had to run out at the tail end, and I'd have to like leave all these gaps and not mess up everybody else's time trial by like trying to pass them and stuff. So, you know, I don't know. I hope I didn't upset any of the novices, but I did get to run in the same class as James's son, Aiden. And it was pretty cool, I think, for James to see both of the cars out on track together. I think he really liked that one picture where I got to give a passed Aiden on track. So
we had a lot of camaraderie out there this weekend, and I did my best to showcase that in my pictures. I don't think that I can keep up with Trad on his one car photos, because he absolutely kills it on his one car images, just with the smooth lines and the low frame rate. I'm not set up for that, even if I had the skill. But there was a few people out there that were there together, and I tried to showcase that, and that was definitely one of the pictures that I was really excited to get, and I was just so hoping that you were going to overtake Aiden on that front straight, and you did, right in the it was like, this is go time. So that was really cool.
That was great. And again, the driving was great, and everybody wants to hear how an M4 drives on track, so that's why we're talking about it first. But I don't know if I can emphasize this enough. It was the people this weekend that made my weekend.
Oh yeah.
But
to talk about an M4 a little bit,
okay,
you got to understand.
I want to hear it. I'm gonna have
you
another
got to
shot.
Understand.
James, warming up. Julio.
So race car, our Mustang, Ryan's Mustang. If she drove it to track, and tracked it and drove it back. She would be more exhausted on the ride there and back than she would be racing the car because it is a race car. So how do you...
That's true.
I'm serious. So how do you remedy that? You got to have a tow rig, you got to have a trailer, you got to do all this shit. So if you had to buy all that right now, like if you decided that you were going to do that right now and you purchased all those pieces, you would spend, if you are not a mechanic, you would spend more than what a BMW M2 costs, most likely.
Or M4? M2.
M4.
Okay.
Or an M2 competition,
Let's just
which
keep
is
it...
also a good track car. So if you want to do track day stuff, and you want to have a really sweet daily driver, and you want it to not be a slouch in either spot, BMW is the way to go. I mean, we saw it this weekend.
And so the car is a salvage title car. It had been rear-ended and something on the side.
James is very good at bringing vehicles back to life.
It's had some destruction in its life. And then it's been to hill climbs, it's been to other track days, and then we beat on that car this weekend in the heat. It was 80 degrees, it was hot, we were running it constantly, you know, full throttle, hard braking, full throttle, I mean, just beating on the car. And James drove it home. I mean, the car never went into limp mode.
That's the thing.
Never had any issues, it just... It really performed, and so I have to maybe take back some things I have said about BMW because I've only driven old high mileage BMWs, and they need maintenance.
The new ones are not.
I was really impressed. This car had almost 8,500 miles on it, so it was still very new engine. And the funny thing is James and his son drove their cars to the track, and then they had to go get the camper. The camper was about 30 minutes away. We have to be out on Sunday, so I was like, I'll drive your BMW to where you have to drop off your camper. And I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed driving it on the street.
She was like, that was nice.
You know, there's something about a BMW interior that just always gets me. That has always been my complaint with the Mustangs, and that's how they keep the prices down.
Yeah, is
the very economical interiors, but the way the steering wheel feels, the way the seats,
soft touch items.
Yeah, the competition seats don't fit me though, because the headrest is like up here, and it kind of like leans forward, so the whole time it kind of did this. So especially with my helmet on, it really pushed my head forward. But it does have adjustable bolsters.
Those are the competition seats.
That's what I'm saying. It was the competition seats.
And you didn't like the competition seats in the M2 either.
I did not like them in the M2.
So that might be a personal
I think they're made for like at least 5'10". I think you have to be at least 5'9", 5'10" to be really comfortable in those seats. So maybe not good for shorter drivers. But it was fantastic car.
It's absolutely ridiculous that you can come off track. You can come off track and the coolant temp and the oil temp and everything. It just don't care. It don't care.
The Camaro interior is good too.
And
you reading them over there? I'm having a hard time. I'm like,
Camaro interior is not good compared to Mustang. That's what Pete's saying. I agree with that.
Oh, go get in a Camaro. I like the way it looks. I think the material, I think the material choices are very similar. I think it's an American Mustang or American muscle car.
In different places.
Yeah, like it.
But
it's not a luxury sports car. Like that's literally not what they are at all.
If you can swing an M4 or an M2 or any M car and you want to take it on track. The only thing that was done to that car to increase performance was putting 200 tread wear tires on it, and you threw down lap times that were only a few seconds off of the fastest lap times that were put down there by experienced people, by people that were running a more aggressive tire setup, And that's a lot to be said about the car. And you know it wasn't only you, because James threw down some badass lap times too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he got down to 140.
And that car was driven by 2 drivers. And there weren't many co-driven vehicles there, because with that amount of heat, you're really putting a lot of heat in the consumables of the vehicle.
Yep.
And that's a twin turbo car, so your intake air temperatures are going to go up when your engine bay is hotter. So there's a lot to be said about what that car did this weekend. We were ridiculously impressed by it.
I was.
If bank account could afford something like that, and it was something we could wrench on here, that's the big thing, is that we can't wrench on it here as well as that car. So that's why we don't own BMWs, and I know we throw a lot of shade towards them now, but honestly, that M4 was fucking epic this weekend. It was the
really
trooper of the weekend. It took